Hello, and thank you so much for joining me on the Last Call with Kristin podcast and Cracked Open with Coach Kristin on YouTube. The reason I am identifying both places is because Sarah is not here for the first time with me. I will link it down in the show notes before, but this is Sarah's second appearance because I love this human and I love doing this work with her. So, Sarah, welcome back. I really appreciate you visiting with me today.
Thank you, Kristin. I'm excited to talk to you.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here. So, we are both survivors of childhood sexual trauma. And we met on a summit a couple of years ago where we were both presenters. And I was immediately captivated by your kindness, by your story, by your affinity for family and your daughter. And I connected with you and I learned from you. So I was really excited when you agreed to come back after writing your book.
Mm.
And so I want to give you the reins, Sarah, to pick them up and start where it feels most resonant in you today.
Okay. Thank you, Kristin. It's so lovely to see you again. I love your energy. I love your mission and your passion.
Thank you so much.
So, yes, I've written a book. I've been procrastinating about writing a book forever and ever and ever. And I've written a book. It's called From Shadows to Self-Love, Healing Childhood Trauma and Reclaiming Your Authentic Self. And this is the self-help book I've wanted to write for a long time. And it's about exploring how trauma leaves hidden scars. It's about joining up the dots between what happened to us as children and who we are now as adults. Because we don't realize the impact of what happened to us as children. We
Yes.
think we can put that in a box. We can forget about it. We can be fine. So many of the women I talk to, we're fine. I have a different interpretation for fine. Fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and exhausted. Think that's what fine is. But I've been fine, for so much of my life, and so many of the ladies I talk to are fine too. We don't realize that what happened to us as kids is still playing out. And we don't want it to. We want to be done with it. We want to forget about it. We want to just be now, be happy, survive. But it isn't that simple. That it shows up in so many areas of our lives. That childhood trauma, that attachment insecurity, that mistrust, that need to be an overachiever, constantly busy, that disconnect from our bodies. There's so many ways in our life that that childhood trauma shows up. So I wanted to write a short self-help book to show people that they're not alone, that they can be on this journey with many other people, men and women, that what happened to them is more common than they think and that they're not nuts. They are coping with life in an adaptive way that is perfectly normal for what happened to them. Because so many of us go through our lives thinking that the things we are doing is just what everybody does. It's just kind of normal. But when you start looking back at what childhood, especially childhood incest and sexual abuse does to us, it forms the blueprint through which we see and act out our lives.
Yes.
And only through awareness and that understanding of realizing, okay, that's because of that.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be this way. And I didn't realize it didn't have to be that way until I started doing my work, which is helping survivors of childhood sexual abuse to heal their subconscious programs so that they can be free and experience joy and peace in their lives now, because so many of us do not feel peaceful.
Yes.
constantly in anxiety or depression or like just feel waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yes.
And we don't have to live that way. I was living that way too until I realized there was another way, that there were these techniques that we could use to actually undo those subconscious programs. So, as we had a little chat about earlier,
Mm.
what precipitated this long-awaited book was on August the 3rd, 2024, I realized that I had been scammed. And I had been scammed by somebody who I trusted and who had made themselves my friend. I'd been scammed out of the enormous sum of 110,000 sterling pounds, which is enormous, absolutely enormous. I just received my pension from being an NHS nurse in A&E for many, many years. All went. He also led me through creating loans from other companies to finance this investment. And I thought I would never be scammed. I'm switched on. I'm a clever person. I'm intelligent. This wouldn't happen to me. Oh my goodness, it happened to me. And on that morning, on August the 3rd, when I woke up in the middle of the night and thought, oh my goodness, I'm being scammed. It was the unthinkable. And it was because it had gone from this wonderful investment opportunity, which was very well backed up with documentation and all sorts, to these threatening letters I was getting. And I thought, this isn't right. This isn't right. I checked out the email address that these threatening letters were coming from, and I discovered they were not from the source that they said they were from. That's how I realized. I went into complete and utter shutdown. I went into complete dissociate. As a survivor, I survived as a child by dissociating. And I went straight back there. I dissociated. I could not even find my way from my bedroom to the living room. I was a utter zombie. Thankfully, I
Well,
have.
were you aware in that moment, we're having the tools and the knowledge that you have today versus when you were a little girl and just
Mm,
operating purely out of survival mode?
yeah,
Did that change your level of awareness? Oh my God, I'm disassociating. Or
no,
did disassociating just drop in
it just dropped.
natural? Yes.
Absolutely dropped. My whole body went into shutdown. I didn't want to be here in this world. I just collapsed.
Mm.
And no, there was nothing other than a complete autonomic nervous system reaction of shutdown. Can't cope, shutdown. Thankfully, I am blessed to have the most beautiful husband who was there and looked after me, really looked after me for those first 3 days. And on day three, after like going through the motions of like, the scammer had got into my laptop, got into my phone, I'd given him access. It was hideous. All the things, the red flags you shouldn't do, I'd done them all. And so I had to do those. So my survival brain managed to help me get through closing down everything on my computer, like getting rid of everything on my phone and storing the chat from the scammer before he wiped it. And then on day three, I suddenly had a flash of insight and I realized, oh my goodness, I feel as if I'm 5 years old. I
Hmm.
feel like I'm five. And that then it was like I started to come up a little bit and I realized it's exactly the same as being groomed. This man built my trust. He created this sense of safety. He promised me the earth and drip fed it to me in a way that felt safe and kind. And he understood everything. And then when I hadn't got anything, and then he took from me, it felt like rape. He took from me. And then when I had no more, he started to threaten me. I thought, this is exactly the same. It's
It's
exactly
exactly
the
the
same.
same.
Yeah.
And the way your body responds to the
Mhm.
familiarity of being powerless is also the same.
It is completely. And thankfully, I, because I've done a lot of work on myself, because I have had a lot of therapy, I've been doing I've done my own program that I run with a colleague, which is about neuroplasticity, it's neuroplasticity exercises that you do every day, which create an ability for your brain to create new synaptical connections and undo them really quickly. I think that's why I was able to realize very quickly, oh, this is what's going on. So I'd done, I'd been doing neuroplasticity exercises for about a year, and I had had different sorts of therapies. I've had hypnotherapy and EMDR. And so in that moment, that morning, I thought, right, I need help. So I sort of talked to myself and I said, when you were a child, you didn't even know there was help out there. Now you're surrounded by this world of amazing people who love you to bits. They'll help you. So I reached out for help, and I think that is the huge message for people here. Reach out for help because you can't do this on your own. You need help. And it's not weak to ask for help. You've got to ask for help. So I asked for help. I had an EMDR session, which with the help of the neuroplasticity worked really fast. And I was able to go back to the root cause of this excruciating pain that I was in and resolve it without reliving it all.
Yes.
So, yeah. And my husband said when I walked out of my room, where I'd had this very snotty, cryy, excruciating EMDR session, when I walked out, he said, "Oh my God, you're back. I can see your eyes again."
Oh.
Yeah.
When we have awakenings like that, whether it is through hypnosis or EMDR, Kundalini, I'm just throwing out some of the ways I've experienced
Mm.
these moments of clarity or awakening. It reminds me of labor. It
Yeah.
almost reminds me of giving birth. I've two children and neither wanted to come out. So as a result of that, I had 2 and 3 day labors with both children. And I feel like when we're going through this metamorphosis of being cracked open to who we're meant to be,
Mm.
people think we're being cracked open and hung out to dry. We've had a ring of bad luck. It's actually, and it takes a while to be able to say this, but it's actually for us that
Yeah,
these things take place.
absolutely. I had never realized, Kristin, that one of my core beliefs was that I wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And I'm 59 years old, and I had spent my entire life believing I wasn't enough, and that in order to be enough and to take space up in the world and to be loved, I had to be extraordinarily amazing at everything. And it's hugely pressuring to feel that. And then I went into what I do, which is helping survivors of childhood sexual abuse. And so I couldn't show the weakness. I couldn't show my pain because I was supposed to be the one who had this sorted. So what the scam showed me and the recovery showed me was it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to share your truth, and you really are enough exactly as you are. Because where I am in my journey, it's further on than some people are. And if I keep this to myself, then I'm not helping all these people who can be helped, who need what I've got to say. And it's not about me, it's about helping other people. And so writing the book came from that really excruciatingly painful experience because I realized I have to get this on paper. I have to share this cathartic experience and share with people how that childhood trauma will come bite you in the bum if you keep pushing it down. And to face it is the scariest thing in the world, but you can do it safely. There are techniques out there now, which you know from doing RTT, you know that there are ways that you can do this, that you don't have to relive all the trauma. You can pinpoint, go right back to the root cause, deal with it, come back, and your life will change. And so I explain that in the book. I talk about my own experiences. I share some practical tools that you can use yourself and give you the opportunity to reach out and have a chat with me if it's something that you would like to do. So that's where the book came from. And yeah, I hope that many, many people get benefit from it because I would not want that everything I've been through to be for nothing. It feels like it's happened for a reason.
Yes, I believe that with all of my heart, Sarah. And I really resonated when you were saying there are avenues, there are pathways that we can choose that make it so that we don't have to re-experience. I think a lot of people, when they go through something like in your case, being scammed, that brought back the feeling of being victimized all over again.
Yeah.
Or when I talk to people who are new to coaching or new to being therapists, and they're putting themselves on camera, creating content, and they're like, oh my God, this is terrifying, Kristin. Nothing will show you your shadow self or the work that you need to do, like going through a harrowing experience, like
Yes.
being scammed, or going through a harrowing experience, like losing a close friend or a loved one.
Yeah.
It doesn't just, you talked about putting stuff in a container and saving it for later. Well,
Mm.
even the best container with the best Tupperware seal will not seal it forever.
No.
And the mistake that people are making is thinking, oh, but if I work on this, I have to go to therapy and
Mm.
I have to pour my guts out for 6 months. That
Mm.
is not what we're talking about here.
No. No.
And yes, there is a time and a place for extended talk therapy.
Mm.
What we know to be true now in 2025 is that there are other modalities like NLP, like hypnosis, like EMDR that can go straight
Yeah.
to the source,
Yeah.
straight
The root
to the
cause.
root.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then you dig it up and out from that root cause. And then, kind of like going to the dentist, fill it back in with a
Mm.
new outlook on your life, with a new
Yeah.
belief, with a new way of looking at it
Yeah.
that is not from the mindset of, I'm a victim, I have bad luck, this crap always happens to me.
Mm.
It's of a mindset of, wow, that really shook me to my core and
Yeah.
took so much from me and illuminated this path at the same
Mm.
time.
Absolutely. And the thing is, I think for a lot of people who've experienced childhood sexual abuse dissociate, which that was my survival default. And so for many of us, we can't remember our childhood and we can't remember the stuff. And a lot of like when you go to therapy, it's very frustrating because you can't remember. So you can't talk about it because you can't remember. And you end up making it up just to keep the therapist happy. You're doing people pleasing. Again, you reinforce that behavior. Then, you go away and you got to pack all that stuff back into the box again when you've left. And I think what the brilliance of the this kind of therapy we do in EMDR is that you don't have to remember. You just have to know, and this is what I focus on. You have to know what's not right now.
Yes,
What's pissing you off? What's difficult for you? Where are you stuck in repeating cycles now? You just focus on the now because they'll have a root cause in the past, in your subconscious. And EMDR, RTT, my sort of hypnosis, it can get to that without you having to dig it all up. So it's really laser focused. We're like ninjas, go straight in there, straight out again. And because people like you and I have experienced that, we know, we understand so much of the stuff that people who haven't been through that don't understand. We get the shame, we get the conflict, we get the, like for me, it was my stepfather who abused me, that loving him, hating him, turning him into two people, not wanting to believe he could be doing that, and all of that complicated stuff. We get that. We get that.
Yeah. We get that in a way that it isn't just a matter of, oh, I'm sorry.
Mm,
That must be really hard.
mm,
We get it in a way that when we're sitting across from
mm,
each other
mm,
or from us in a client who is basically telling our story
mm,
from their mouth back to us,
mm.
we feel in our bodies what they went through
Yes.
because we
Yes.
know that what occurred as far as being scammed, what occurred as far as being raped, those are abhorrent in and of themselves. But the way that they made us feel for
Yes.
decades is where the actual trauma took place.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's afterwards. It's
Yeah. And
afterwards.
I think a lot of people mix that up or they compare their stories. Oh,
Mm,
well, I was molested, not raped, therefore it wasn't that bad.
yeah.
Trauma is trauma is trauma.
Yeah.
And to your
Mm.
brain can't tell what is that bad. It's all damaging.
Yes. And it's what it does to our nervous system.
Yeah.
So when I sit across the screen or in real life from somebody who has been sexually abused, my nervous system can help them regulate because I get it. I help them connect with themselves because we have to learn to co-regulate before we can regulate on our own. And when you're in the space with somebody who has been through what you've been through and who has healed, really important, and who has done a huge part of the healing and who has learned how to regulate their nervous system. Because, if you think about it, I was scammed out of all that money and I regulated. It took me 3 days to realize, and then I regulated immediately. It's not that we'll never be triggered, it's how fast can you come back into regulation. And that is the thing that, we're all, yes, we're thriving survivors. We're survivors. Sometimes we're victims. We're what we are. And we will, we will often be triggered by how quickly can you come back?
Mhm.
And if you have somebody in the beginning of your healing journey, when you realize you're sick of being a victim and you want to be something else, but you don't know how, find somebody who has been through a similar situation to you, but is demonstrating in their life that they have healed. There are so many unhealed healers out there who they're unable to help you because they'll just reflect back to you that same dysregulation. You want somebody who can help you regulate. It's really important. Nervous system regulation, hugely important.
I agree. And having a regulated nervous system allows the work that you're doing to integrate.
Yes.
That is one piece of the puzzle when I work with clients. Some are sober, some are cutting back, some
Mm,
are sober from alcohol, but still using cannabis. And what I like to say, there's no judgment in any of that. There is
absolutely. No
no
judgment.
judgment in any of it.
Absolutely.
The one little constructive piece of advice that I will lend in this space, just this episode is not about sobriety, but we happen to be landing in
Mm,
January, so I will bring it up. the synapses, the neural pathways, these new beliefs will take their new place rather quickly without extra alcohol, cannabis, recreational medication on board. And the only reason I want to say that is because I know for myself, I was doing talk therapy, I did EMDR, I did all of the things, but I was still using alcohol as my main coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And until I had to experience the discomfort of not having that,
Mm.
that's when I plugged into meditation,
Yeah.
journaling, going within. So, in just speaking for myself here, the alcohol or the sleeping pills kept me just comfortable enough that I didn't quite have to face the music.
Mm.
So, I'm only saying you can heal, you can still enjoy whatever your choice is.
Yeah.
And know that these new beliefs get instilled far faster to a brain that is not being pulled away from its work with alcohol or drugs.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know that from your experience.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not saying you can't do this work if you're not sober. I'm just saying if you've tried some of these modalities and you're not feeling movement, it could be the practitioner that you're working with. Maybe you need someone who's gone through it, like Sarah and
Mhm.
myself. Or it could be that your brain is not having the chance to really soak up this new information and these new beliefs and new ways of thinking.
Yeah. 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 Neuroplasticity is massively important. And if anybody's interested, then, I can share with them the neuroplasticity program that I run and that I've done that is so massively transformational. Yeah.
And I will link to your book,
Thank
to
you.
the program, to your website in the show notes so that
Thank you.
people can have a place to
Yeah.
turn.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anybody does want to have just a 15-minute chat with no expectations of anything, just to chat. And we'll have a look at where you're stuck and how quickly you could be free.
And
Yeah.
as an incentive, Sarah, before I let you go, I'm really curious to hear about after the 3 days,
Mm,
it felt as though you had disassociated
yeah.
and that was your coping mechanism, rightfully
Yeah.
so, because this was extremely traumatic.
Yeah.
What did you feel like when you opened your eyes and your husband commented, I can see in your eyes that you're open, you're awake. What did that feel like for you? What did that awakening feel like?
Felt like love.
Mm.
It felt like love. And I was able to let in the love that has been all around me all of my life that I could never let in because I wasn't worthy of it.
Oh, I just want to witness you and soak that up for you.
Mm, yeah.
It's the love within, it's the
Yeah.
self-love.
And that's what the book's about. Coming
Yeah.
back to our authentic self and to self-love. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to read it, Sarah. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for
Thank
taking
you.
this time to share with me again.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my
Mm.
pleasure as well.